It was not my best week of defenses. I repented on Monday night, and we've got to move forward because defense in fantasy football is pivotal at this moment in time. We're going through the top 12 defense rankings for week 6 fantasy football, and I'm one of the only fantasy creators who covers defense multiple times a week. So go down there and drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now get into our first tier of defenses here. I've got the Broncos defense at number 1. It's really hard to see them not do the defense number 1 this week when they're going to the New York Jets house and playing them. Now, the Jets offense, they've got so many issues aside from there just not being enough there offensively, particularly with the quarterback, Justin Fields. And I have always liked Justin Fields. He just isn't good enough. Really, the only concern here is that he actually starts to get garbage time points because that's what he's been feeding on all season long. But as much like mistakes as this offense makes, the whole team makes, I find it hard to believe that the NFL defense leader in sacks this year, the Denver Broncos, don't continue to get after Justin Fields this week, who's indecisive throwing the ball, and also getting another opportunity to get an interception or two off of Justin Fields, who was going to be panicking, trying to catch up to the Denver Broncos. I don't see how it doesn't work out. And at number 2, to round out this very exclusive tier, I've got the Packers defense versus the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, it's really funny, like watching the comments roll in on the wide receiver rankings video and people's disgust with me and my Jamar Chase ranking. It's really hilarious to watch yahoos with such short memories when it comes to the offense of Cincinnati. Have you not been watching their offense be freaking atrocious the first couple of weeks without Joe Burrow? Yeah, they come in and have a couple garbage time points. That's the only thing they can cling to here. Green Bay's defense, yes, they didn't do great against the Dallas Cowboys. Well, you know what? They have Dak Prescott, who's 1,000 times better than, I don't care if it's Jake Browning or Joe Flacco this week. It doesn't freaking matter. Their offensive line sucks. Get it through your thick heads over there on the other side of this, because you guys are ridiculous for fighting me on it. It is the Packers defense at number 2. They are definitely going to take advantage of that horrendous offensive line. They're going to get turnovers off of Flacco if it's him, and they'll get them off of Jake Browning if it's him. Cope with these rankings. Dropping down to our next tier, the Colts defense is at number 3, and they're taking on the Arizona Cardinals in Indianapolis this week. Now, the Colts defense is in this position to where they've done so well defensively pretty much against every opponent, and they continue to run through this pretty easy schedule within the first month and a half of their season. Now, Arizona lost one of the most embarrassing ways that you could ever imagine a team losing like in week 5, and you know, I think it's popular to say, like, they're going to continue to look that bad and just, like, be that more embarrassing. The reality is we never know, and I always say this with the Cardinals, how they will look on a week-to-week basis. So I want to put the Colts in tier 1, but I didn't do it because it wouldn't shock me at all if Kyler Murray plays in this game, which he is questionable at this point, but if he plays in the game and he lights them up for 21, 28 points, it wouldn't shock me because they're a very hot and cold team. So the Colts defense, they're getting 14 sacks in 5 games, 6 interceptions. I'm sure they're going to make plays, and I like them as a top 3 defense, but I refrain from putting them inside of tier 1. Now, at number 4, again, to round out this exclusive tier, the Rams defense at the Baltimore Ravens. Now, obviously, I'm operating under the assumption that Lamar Jackson does not play in this particular game right here. The Rams defense is a good defense. Don't let Thursday night fool you. I think Thursday night has a lot to do with good defenses looking bad off of a short week. They're at a disadvantage off a short week. And the Rams defense, yes, the problem that they have is their secondary isn't good, but if it's not Lamar Jackson, Cooper Rush is already throwing interceptions and making bad mistakes. I think the Ravens are just a cursed team this year. They're not looking very good with Cooper Rush. He's throwing interceptions, creating turnovers. So I think the Rams defense will get after Cooper Rush, who doesn't have nearly the amount of elusiveness that Lamar has. Their front 7 is going to dominate the Ravens front 7, and they'll be a top 5 play this week. Now, dropping down to our next tier right here, I've got the Steelers defense at number 5, and they're playing the Cleveland Browns off of a bye week at home. And I think they're in good position here. And here's the reality, right? So the Browns move off of Joe Flacco today. They were already playing Dylan Gabriel. It looks like he'll get the play. And I did say this with the Vikings defense last week, and I was wrong to put them in my top 12 to begin with. But I did say I do think that they'll be less turnover happy now that it's not Joe Flacco. And it proved a point because they were much more conservative with their game plan, and I think they will continue to do that in Cleveland. But the Steelers' defense, you have to take into account, they're a turnover machine. They get big plays, those plays necessary for fantasy football, and they have been getting after quarterbacks this year. In 4 games, they have 14 sacks. So the Steelers' defense, I imagine them getting a couple of sacks off Dylan Gabriel. They're usually good against rookie quarterbacks, and I would imagine they'll probably take the ball away at least 1 or 2 times. The Patriots' defense is at number 6, and they're going to New Orleans to take on the New Orleans Saints. The Patriots are a really good defense. Like, Mike Vrabel has done very well, all things considered, with that Patriots defense. They're really not getting that hurt. They have a couple of injuries, particularly on the back end, but even against the Bills, like, they held them really, really well for the majority of that game. Now, I will say this, with the Saints, they actually can put up points. Like, their offense has been pretty efficient for the majority of the season, but they are still not talented enough to where I don't think they're going to put up more than 20 points against this defense. And the Patriots are getting after quarterbacks. They've got 11 sacks in 5 games. They've got 5 interceptions. They've been a ball-hawking secondary. So I think they'll make the Saints make a couple mistakes and end up having a good day in fantasy as a defense. The Titans' defense is at number 7, and they're going to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. And it's just really hard to not envision a good day for any defense that plays Geno Smith. And I've got a secret for you. They're not going to bench him, because their backup right now, Aiden O'Connell, is still hurt. So that means their primary backup is Kenny Pickett. They will not play Kenny Pickett. It will continue to be Geno Smith, and I just can't picture how Geno Smith is better. Like, he looks atrocious this year. And the Titans defense, I've been saying for a lot of the season, they do have a good defense. They've got dudes on that defense, and they finally came through for a good performance in Week 5. Now, a lot of that came off of the touchdown, and I'm not saying that's going to happen again, but the Titans defense, they do have dudes, man, and I could see them causing a couple of turnovers off of Geno Smith, and just Raiders offense overall just doesn't look good enough for me to ignore the Titans' top 10 play this week. And the Eagles defense is at number 8 to round out this tier, and it's the Thursday night game. They're going to New York to play the Giants. Now, I've been saying this for weeks. Thursday night defense is usually not a good sign. That's usually not something that you want to take advantage of, because defenses are usually at a disadvantage on Thursday nights. And if Jackson Dart ends up playing in this game, this is where I have him ranked. Now, there's a chance that he doesn't play, and the Eagles defense probably go up closer to the top of this tier right here, but I still can't rule out the fact it is a Thursday night game, but the Giants have so many injuries. Even if Dart plays, they're going to be missing Darius Slayton. So their wide receiver 1 is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson, and their wide receiver 2 will be Jalen Hyatt. I have trouble seeing the Giants score that many points. I think the Eagles will be looking to get a bad taste out of their mouths, and they'll take it out on the Giants this week. So even if Dart plays, I've got him here at 8, but if he doesn't play, they're going to go higher. So it's a fluid ranking. But if you don't have your defense this week for Week 6 fantasy football yet, this is where you need to utilize our automatic waiver wire tool system that has completely automated the waiver process for you. Because always what happens at the end of priority waivers, there's always a mad dash in the middle of the night in competitive leagues to go grab the best of the remaining players. We've automated that for you so you can sleep through the night and still beat the guys trying to get up at 3 in the morning right as soon as those priority ads run through. We've gotten a ton of people saying how they're pissing off their league mates because they're beating them even though they're falling asleep and not waking up to go grab those players, and they're still beating those guys. So it's very valuable this year. And you can also see my top 250 plus rankings on a weekly basis when you join the premium subscription as well.
Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast. And losing his season again means one thing. Oh, no. Don't be Ted. Automate your waiver pickups with Fantasy Football Roundup.
Now, dropping down to our last tier, I've got the Jags defense at number 9 and the Seahawks at 10, and they're playing each other in Jacksonville this week. Now, I will say this. I am really having trouble with the Jags defense, because the Jags defense, I came into the season thinking they were still bad like last year. Well, it turns out a new coaching staff really changes the game, and I'll be honest, they're kind of breaking me apart because they're the number 1 defense right now, and it's not making a ton of sense to me. Like, the Jags defense has 7 sacks in 5 games. That's a low number. That's not even 2 sacks per game. That's low. They have 10 interceptions, though, in 5 games. That's what it really comes from, right? Of course, that makes sense. And the Seahawks are in this position to where they've played such good football offensively over the first month of football that it's hard for me to see the Jags being a top-tier play this week. And they had a big moment against the Chiefs where they would have been an atrocious play if you played them, because the Chiefs were moving the ball up and down the field on them, but that pick 6 changed the game. So I just can't put them much higher than this against an offense that has played really cerebral football for the first month. But I will say, at this point, I can't ignore the Jags defense and the Seahawks defense as well. It's the complete other end of the spectrum, right? They just had their worst game by far this year. But I believe so much more in the talent in Seattle's defense than I do with Jacksonville's. I think they just have so much talent on that defensive side of the ball. 13 sacks in 5 games, 7 interceptions. Like, their defense is ball hawks as well. I distrust Sam Darnold less than I distrust Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence had some bad, boneheaded mistakes on Monday Night Football. He just covered it up by winning the game. But Trevor Lawrence and Sam Darnold in this game, it's really hard to tell. They both have really good fantasy defenses. I think they'll both make plays to a certain extent. But I'll be honest here, these two rankings, I don't feel super confident in. And the Raiders defense is at 11 versus the Tennessee Titans this week. And it's just so hard again to see this matchup. Watch them play the Tennessee Titans, who Cam Ward has done really not much of anything good. He's a turnover machine this year, and he's just not playing that good of football. And not see the Raiders as a top 12 play. Like, it's so hard to not look at them like that. And they've crushed me over and over again by making me look like an idiot for putting them in the top 12 over the last 2 years. But I'm going to do it again this week. And the reason why is because Cam Ward isn't very good right now. He's just not. And Cam Ward has turned the ball over. This offense isn't full of talent. And I just think that the Raiders defense, I'm going to have trouble seeing them not get a couple sacks on Cam Ward with this bad offensive line and maybe even a pick or 2 off of him. I can't imagine how this isn't a solid day at the very minimum for the Raiders, and that's why they're at 11. And I've got the Chargers at 12 to round this whole thing out. And they're going to Miami to play the Dolphins. You know, I considered a couple defenses here. This last tier, I don't have too much confidence in, so I considered multiple. I considered the Browns against the Steelers. I considered the Giants against the Eagles, believe it or not. I considered the Cowboys versus the Carolina Panthers. I stuck with the Chargers here for a couple reasons. Number one, like on the bad side, they're not only the offensive side of the ball injured, their defense is injured as well. And their defense hasn't done particularly well in fantasy over the last couple of weeks. Well, here's the reality is that they've had a rough go the first month. They've been out of town, overseas, across the country. Like, they've been everywhere except at home for a long portion of the time. So I'm going to cut them a little slack. So then they go to Miami, and they're taking on this team that looks like they're about to fire their head coach. They look in shambles. Yes, they have talent, but I'm going to bet against a team that is this close to firing their head coach against other teams that are probably more stable than them right now. That's the main reason the Chargers are at 12. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below. And if you want to see the top 30 wide receivers for this week in fantasy football, click on this video right here.